I was a musician, then I danced. In contemporary, you're on the ground, more awareness to my body. From dance, I discovered animal flow. I could incorporate my understanding of arts and music and tempo and speed into it and be stronger. After animal flow, I noticed the muscular growth, mobility, flexibility, hand-eye coordination. When I'm doing badminton, my shots are better. I feel better on court. Then I noticed the neuroscience behind it. When we start as kids, we crawl on the floor. That's how kids grow, because we need more kinesthetic awareness, stimulation towards the brain. As adults, we lose some of that, and if we don't review it, it does go away. I think the most beneficial part is enhancing your brain. I'm more confident, and that confidence links towards other things.
My name is Nobin, your host. I believe that we live among superheroes. Many a times we walk past them not knowing because of our busy schedules. This podcast is my journey to find such individuals, bring them on board, and have meaningful conversation to unravel the biohacks and lifestyle hacks that they have used to optimize well-being and realize their fullest potential. In many of these hacks will lie the solution for us to look better, perform better, and live longer. Welcome to the Zuperhuman Podcast. My guest today, a talented young individual who has achieved a lot despite his young age. He has diverse educational background that ranges from music to human anatomy and neurobiology, studying from some of the finest universities in Canada. He is hands down one of Hong Kong's most sought out for multilingual presenters and host. Not just that, a popular animal flow and martial art instructor who has performed at prominent events in Hong Kong, demonstrating his clear talent, passion, and inspiration to teach. An ambassador and promoter to some of the seriously impressive brands in Hong Kong and in Asia, including Lane 8, Soho House, National Geographic. His achievements highlight the importance of dedication, perseverance, and passion in achieving success even at a young age. For me, he is the greatest inspiration to generation ahead to focus on chasing dreams at an early age without fear of failure. Vincent, welcome on board.
Hello, Nobin. It's great to see you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I did my morning workout, and things have been running and rolling today.
Has it been flowing?
It has been flowing.
We'll talk about the flow in a bit. Yes, that's an area that I'm really going to talk about in this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm just going to roll the tape memory lane a bit back here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you're like a super kid, mate, doing a lot of things and excelling in it. How did you get here?
Well, thank you for that. I do a lot of things. I think that's because I always, as a kid, I wanted to do multiple streams like arts, music, science, dance, all of those things. And I wanted to be that one person that grasped all those areas. And then traditionally, when we grow up, you cannot go everywhere. So parents, Asian stereotype, doctor, which I actually wanted to do because I was good at biology. And I was like, I love this. It's a great standing point in society, and also makes my parents proud, and I enjoy it. But then eventually I was like, I really like arts too. Can I combine those two things together? Which is, it's not possible. Even nowadays, there are new programs, but then arts and science are always separate. You don't interrelate those things. And then I kind of forged that while I was doing university. I did a music and biology degree where I combined the two forcefully, where my classes were so back to back that I was always late, but then it happened. So I think it started from when I was a kid. I wanted to do a lot of things, and then I figured I carved my own path, like my own way. I will make it work, whether it's time, whether it's studying harder, whether it's like sacrificing friendship for like just a bit more studying time, or like get to know the profs better so I do well and interrelate my two subjects together. That sparked what I could do. I saw it working in high school, then I pushed for it in university, and now in real life where we met, like doing fitness, being involved in music, my education background, I want to merge it all together and be an example for my students and my friends around.
One of the things that really stands out in what you said is that as a kid, you always try to make this happen. And it sounds very easy, but was it really easy?
No, it was so hard. First, to study music or arts as a kid, your family needs to be quite well off, or your family actually thinks that's worth an investment. So I didn't really start music as a kid. Maybe listening to radio, that's very common ground. But then my parents noticed I would be dancing. I would be able to copy a song and like do the whole thing. So I was somehow artistically gifted or oriented in that way. So I just did my own thing, and I was great at studying. I don't know, had some kind of memory thing. Worked out every subject, was really smooth and easy. And then, I don't know, as a kid, I was very reactive to how people talk to you, their body language. So I got past every interview for the school. I would use all my school advantage characteristics to excel in Canada. And then from there, it was still tough because obviously you move to a different country. You can experience the racism or whatever you want to call it, like different cultural clashes. And then you also had something to prove because now you are a visible representation of where you came from.
Right.
So I like, oh, you do the math, you did it. I'm like, oh, he's also great in music. That's out of the ordinary. That's not okay. So I wanted to keep pushing that. I'm like, the ethnic background doesn't limit where you could be. So I kept pushing that. Luckily, in my 7th grade, my teacher, Miss Lopez, shout out to you.
Wow.
She was Filipino, and then she really helped me push my boundaries for English writing. And then I tried really hard, and she was like, this is a great essay. I have it pinned on my wall. And then she inspired me that, like, whatever your ethnic is, if you try hard enough, if someone pressures you or gives you enough stress, I say that with don't too much stress, but enough stress pushes you beyond. And then that's when I knew that I can push myself more and more. And then eventually that led to here.
We're going to talk a bit about the stress element a little later on. But as a functional medicine practitioner and somebody who's always looking out for hacks to optimize well-being and to live longer, one of the things that you do, which is the animal flow, which derives principles from the quadrupedal movement techniques, where there is proven science today to show that that is an exercise and movement technique that actually enhances strength, endurance, flexibility, and also cognitive strength, if I can say. Your educational background encompasses neurobiology. What can our viewers learn from you about animal flow and the science behind?
As a kid, I was very kinesthetically keen. My mother was a Olympic athlete, so from there I was very intrigued in martial arts. But then at that time, I was a full musician. Then I danced. When I came to Hong Kong, I tried to incorporate two together, and that's when I discovered animal flow. I wanted to find a sport that is not purely weightlifting, because for my physique, I would have to be at the gym, like, I don't know, 24/7, forever to like get a bigger build. My body structure is like that. I should find a sport that I excel in, which is mobility, flexibility, hand-eye coordination. Those were my key points of strength. So I wanted to find a sport that emphasized those things and made it better. So then from dance, I discovered animal flow, and I was like, ooh, this is very fitnessy, but at the same time, I could incorporate my understanding of arts and music and tempo and speed into it and be stronger. And then I noticed that the neuroscience behind it. And I was like, wow, this is something that I always wanted to put my science and arts background and fitness background together in one. And this was one thing that I incorporated. It's fairly new, like about a decade. So I got my instructors, and then I went to continue it. And I really live by it now, because obviously when you try it, you're like, oh, this is the same thing as dance, not that hard. But then there are very detailed parts that have a scientific background, as you said, that enhances the mind-body and mind-muscle connection. That I think the most beneficial part is enhancing your brain, the synaptic connection. So when we start at kids, I should say, we crawl on the floor.
I love where this is going. Go for it.
We crawl on the floor, and then that's how kids grow, because we need more kinesthetic awareness. The more stimulation towards the brain enhances more neurosynaptic connections. The more that you have, the better you are. Basically, like a road that has multiple pathways, you can go anywhere you want, and it's faster the more you engage with it. As adults, we lose some of that because we are busy with our focus. Like you're a pilot and you do all the other things. Like if I just fully focused on music, my neural ability in music, like fingering technique, blah, 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 that would enhance greatly. But then maybe in a different direction, like weightlifting, it will never I will never need to do this with my clarinet. So those synaptic connections would gradually weaken. But in animal flow, because I need to use all four on the ground, you wake up the senses from your hands. You go back to the childhood state of increasing the synaptic growth, because we are learning constantly every day.
Right.
And if we don't review it, it does go away. You need to wake that up, and how much more aware you are. Like in dance, yes, especially I do contemporary. I did do hip hop. Hip hop is very feet oriented.
Right.
You barely touch the ground. So you're literally half of your body is not aware. And then in contemporary, you're on the ground. When I did contemporary, there was definitely more awareness to my body. I noticed my enhancement when I'm in doing badminton. I'm much more coordinated. My shots are better. The angle at which I move my hand, the brushing, like all of that enhanced. After animal flow, I noticed the muscular growth of fine motor control. I had an injury in my right shoulder where I can't get a specific movement, and if I play too much, it would hurt. After doing animal flow for about a year or two, like there are specific requirements to lift a certain part, and I noticed I'm like, my back is stronger. I was more aware I could lock my back much better than just regular bench presses and back pulls. My shoulders are no longer hurting, and I have my mobility and strength increased for badminton. So it's not just enhancement towards a physical aspect for just the animal flow, but I was more aware on court. My balance was better. I'm more confident, and that confidence links towards other things.
And I think you beautifully mentioned it. You took it back to kids and growing up. As we age, something that we've ingrained into ourselves is the fact that we start growing old. Mm-hmm. The minute we stop saying that, you're bringing about a big transition. If we were to just grow up and continue growing up, respecting the fact that, you know, some of the fundamental things of being a kid was moving around, playing around, being agile, being flexible. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, what you just defined here is kind of like, you know, my definition to anti-aging. The more we are able to flow with our mind, body, and soul connected, you're actually basically increasing blood flow.
Yep.
And there is proven science that if you can increase blood flow to specific regions, you're actually giving an opportunity for genesis of cellular growth.
Yep.
You've been teaching on some of the biggest platforms in Hong Kong, like the HKU and also the Health and Fitness Expo, just recently also. What are some of the benefits that your clients see from something of this sort?
I think my education background, being a teacher for 6 years, multiple subjects, is teaching my clients not only fitness benefits, but the confidence they grow. I'm really big on making sure my clients feel comfortable. I teach them that it's okay to mess up, because I own up to my mess ups. Say I call the wrong one, like animal flow. Oh, it's right leg under switch, but then I use my left. Well, I made a problem. That's okay. You call it wrong. It's just your neural connection. Be aware of the problem, adjust and fix and go again. And then through that process, they know like, oh, I don't know how to do this movement. It's way too hard. I'm like, well, let's scaffold it. Let's bring it down one by one.
Right.
Build onto it, and then you will get there. Like as people say, Rome wasn't built in a day, or whatever fancy metaphor you want. But I know that if you stop in the first step, you will never reach there. And you need to be aware of yourself, which level you can go to. Like for me, I just did my level 2 for animal flow instructor. But then there's one move, it's called the tuck, and it's kind of like a handstand, but like your knees are not very high to the sky. Like I could do a handstand and hold it, but I'm like, how do I do a tuck? It should be technically easier, but like the movement is very different. So that's a part where I have to like let down my ego, let down my experience. Yes, I could do it in like tumbling and gymnastics, but I can't do it for animal flow. What's the problem? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, you start having all these self-doubts. But then I'm like, okay, I'm going to train myself as I teach my kids and clients. You need to step-by-step it. Like, what are the steps that I could increment for myself? And I know myself the best. So you need to be like, stop stressing yourself, stop pushing yourself so hard, find your best way. So the same thing for my clients. They notice that they're more aware of how they learn best. And that's my biggest takeaway as a teacher and an instructor is, do you learn best kinesthetically? Is it best that you're a visual learner? Or are you a auditory receptor? You need to hear it. You can't read the instruction. You have to hear it and then Can I use some muscle bands to help you get to the specific area? Are you a dancer background? Are you a footballer background? What is your background that I can adjust, that I could give a perspective for you for animal flow? Like if you're a yoga practitioner, a slightly closer relationship to animal flow, though not the same thing. I'll be like, oh, this is basically the downward dog position, except you lift one leg up. So if you're somebody else, if you're a martial art expert, think of it like a hook kick, or like give something that they can associate with. Everyone has a confidence base somewhere in their life, whether they were a runner, whether they were, even if you're a couch potato, you know how to sit very well, you know how to breathe very well, and you observe the TV very well. So use your eyes to observe this movement. Like there's always a benefit to whatever you do. And from my experiences, take that one spark of confidence from them, from that moment, and then mold it into what you need in that lesson, whether it's moving your left hand faster than your right hand, whether it's be safe to roll over and trust that your body will save you. Like build on that, and then from there I also learned how to adjust to everyone that I see. So that's how like you're like good at, well, I try to be a good host, or I try to have good conversations with people. You need to give that yin and yang, that like when you talk I back off, and then when I see a advantage or I see a point, I come back in. That's also like, I'm also Taoist, so I see how that give and take, that take what's good and bring it back, and then really balance the person, help them build, and then they will return that into their own ability. Bring that confidence up, that confidence will then lead to them growing, and then I will then benefit. Like it's a constant circulation of how things go. Yeah.
Man, I am so wowed. Throughout my journey, I've had very few instructors because I didn't believe in the system, because I always thought I could be self-educated. But the kind of passion that you've just set this whole thing in wants me to maybe even consider hiring you as somebody who I would love to train with, you know, and introduce myself to animal flow, where I know the science behind it, but hey, we all live a busy life and there's only a few things that you can do. And then it's a journey about just flowing and then finding the right person with so much of passion, education, to come across and be just accommodating and say, you know, hey man, you might be a little old, but we're going to use some of your muscle motor memory of what you've done before, and then, you know, get you started with this. And like you rightly said, we learn a lot from our students, and the passion that you have is second to none.
When you work with someone, they know. Whether they're an expert in marketing or PR, if they're really good at hiding it, you can't hide it at the moment when you're stressed enough. Like if I'm asking you to hold a plank, like I can tell, like you either hate me or you don't. Like you can see it in their eyes, like when you talk with them. And then especially when I work with younger students, they don't even have that veil of us adults. Like we know how to put on a face. We know how to put on like a barrier, a mask to please our clients or whatever. But then when you're working with students, you see that instant reaction, that innate response where the eyes dilate when they're happy, that genuine smile, or when they're trying to hide it, you can tell. It's like if I ever was tired and I was just ever like, nah, you do it, it's okay. Like they would give me the instant, like, Mr. Tang, I know you're not giving your all. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
And then like, that's great, because I thought I could hide it from them. I'm like, oh, I am sick. I do want to make an excuse. And that's when you know that relationship is very good. The kids are very honest with me. I am honest with them. And they'll tell me, you're tired, right? Okay, let's change it up. Like they learn how to accommodate while you're accommodating them. So that's the beauty of it. And like when you mentioned the flow, like you teach, there's a flow as a teacher, but there's also a flow as a student. And if you could put that together, there's about 15-minute, 20-minute time span for when you reach the optimal flow. We call it flow as well. Like it's engaging the content for about 15 to 20 minutes. Your body's cortisol level rises to a certain point where it helps you narrow down the synaptic responses. And that's the scientific chemical background that brings focus together physically. And then from that 20 minutes-ish onwards, you will learn at your optimal pace. Optimal pace, obviously maybe for like another 30 minutes or so, and then it drops. Because then your cortisol level will just keep continuing to build. Whether you're getting happier from other things or you're getting a negative response, that will adjust. But then there's optimal times where classes are going for like an hour and a half. Like that does not induce a positive learning environment. So in my classes, I always have like brain breaks, making sure my students are getting their prep time, water, whether it's fitness class, water, whether it's a stretching class, whether it's a music class, whether it's a science class, you need to have breaks.
Textbook definition.
I try.
It is just states that you go into for like 20 minutes without an objective, where your mind, body just connects in a way where you will learn and also you would provide an output. Anything beyond that is questionable. Now, talking about the cortisol, another big thing that you do is like you are one of the most sought out for hosts and presenters in Hong Kong. At your age, interviewing some of the biggest names and also hosting such big shows, is fear or nervousness a part of your textbook? Is it even exist?
Those emotions are human and they're part of you and you can't really get rid of them. I own up to it. Like, you get afraid. I always tell my students, fear or nervousness is your respect to the art. Because like, if you're not nervous, you don't care. If you're not afraid, you don't care. Like, if I didn't care about it, I'm like, honestly, I could just go on stage and read the script. Like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I wouldn't care how I look. I wouldn't care how the audience perceives me. That's the distinguishing factor between someone that's passable and then someone that engages. And people often think hosts are just, you're just paid to read the MC script. It's way more than that. You're the sole person that understands the whole flow of the event. You're working with the stage manager, you're working with the lighting, you're working with audio, you're working with the speakers and everybody. I was lucky to be able to host and interview some big names, and that's grateful for the radio stations and the people that helped me got connected. They got me the opportunity. I had to maintain the opportunity. I go on stage unengaged. They will never call me back. The music area that I grew up in, like, I would always ask for the score early. Like, basically, you had to prepare. We were taught to always prepare and be prepared for anything that could go wrong will go wrong kind of mindset. So when I did the scripting, I did the same thing.
So you said fear is a human response.
Yep.
And the faster we accept it, the better it is.
Yeah.
Fear is a human response, which, we call fight or flight, where basically your ability to take action shuts. The only thing is the blood flows for you to escape or get out of the situation.
Yep.
By just saying what you just said, and I think this is a beautiful biohack in itself, just saying, it is normal for me to fear. Fear is going to get me to do better because I hold a huge responsibility. I got to go up there, utilize this fear to showcase my best potential. So not only have you just switched your body from a fight or flight situation to rest or digest, where now you're actually thinking. You're able to be creative. You're able to use fear as a tool to help you grow.
Yep.
I think that in itself is phenomenal. Just by stating, hey, fear. Am I being chased by a tiger or a lion? Or is this just some false emotion that's appearing real, which if I use and harness can really help me go out there and unlock to be this super kid that you are proving to be in this journey of yours?
You need to harness that emotion to your advantage. If you keep thinking, I'm going to be horrible, I'm going to be horrible, blah, 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 you are going to be horrible because you're re-emphasizing that to your body. Your body's learning.
The power of manifestation.
Yeah, you are learning fear is going to happen, and then you've accepted fear, then you will cause negative responses because you're reinforcing that concept to your brain. You're teaching your brain that fear is going to cause a negative result. But then as a singer, when we train for music, you are always going to be nervous on stage. You're going to have light of breath.
Acceptance.
I love it. You need to know. I'm like, you're going to be nervous. Pavarotti is always nervous. There's so many big names that nervousness is an innate response because there are so many things that could go wrong. You could have practiced the piano for 7,000 years and still mess up because it just happens. You need to accept that you are human. And then, like, we teach you, breathe deep. It's okay. Like, you need to accept that. And then ride on that because fear, adrenaline, all those things are also stress. Turn that stress into you can excel with that stress because sometimes when you're pushed beyond your limit, you excel. Like, in a badminton match or whatever, for me, like, I was pushed, and I produced a shot that was like, whoa, like, I've never done that. Like, maybe in training, like, once out of 1,000 shots. But then in this critical moment, that happened. We need to be aware that fear is something that's going to happen and that you can take advantage of it to push yourself beyond.
So fear is good. The faster we normalize fear, the better. We need to start using fear maybe as a tool to actually enhance.
Yes. Know your limit, I would have to say.
Okay.
You can't always be like being too scared. I'm like not very good at roller coasters. Like I'm not going to go to a roller coaster. I'm not going to push myself to that limit because I know that's too much for me. So you need to acknowledge fear, understand your own limit, test it, and then push yourself beyond in increments. I think that would be my way of putting it.
Now, I love that, especially the last bit. And that is where, as a person, I kind of, flaw because I push myself. But many a times I don't put checks or, pull out of that flow state, if I can say, to, check, how am I doing? Am I doing all right? Is my cognitive ability still as strong as it's supposed to be? Am I getting output as much as I'm putting in time? And many a times, especially in life in Hong Kong, we just tend to keep pushing. And we start to feel that, from the outside, we're redefining limits. And that is kind of a macho environment that we live in. And this is where one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast is to help people understand that, we're all superhumans in our own world. But even superhumans need to come back, ground themselves, and do a check and fix themselves internally and externally before they go out there the next day and perform their act.
Yep. I think you definitely need to ground yourself because say you're succeeding very well. If you don't ground yourself, you're just going to be arrogant and other people will then not like you and then it will just go downhill. If you don't ground yourself after a negative day, you're just going to live on that for maybe another week and then eventually that could grow into something else. You need to ground yourself to a certain equilibrium where you can go up or you can go down. And obviously if it's going up, keep yourself, don't override it too high and then maintain it. That's when you have steady growth. Right. If you don't ground yourself, it's just gonna be like, I'm the best MC in the world and you all need to hire me. It's dangerous if you don't ground yourself, I would say.
I love what you said there, the grounding element. You live such a busy lifestyle. A fitness instructor, fitness influencer, an MC, an animal flow instructor, and a very busy person in general, and still studying, needless to say. We'll talk about that in a bit. What are some of the hacks that you use to ground yourself in order for you to go out there the next day and perform to actually grow?
I take organization as a very big part of my grounding. I reflect on every day. What did well, what didn't go well, how can you do better? But then mostly I'll be like, my time is for this, 30 minutes to feel bad about yourself. Okay, now move on, stop staying there. I make sure I organize my time well, whether I try to sleep, whether I try to be with my friends, whether I have to work. If I'm doing all those things, I'm fully committed at that time. That's how I ground myself. When I'm doing my skincare, I'm just going to do that. And then that's also my routine, day and night, making sure that I feel good, I look good, I'm taking care of myself. And in that moment, you can think whatever you want while that serum's absorbing on your face. Okay, think about your MC script. Oh, you're going to meet your friends tomorrow. Organization is the best way for me to ground myself. And also self-advocating being the third way of me grounding. You need to know your limits. And at the end of the day, I would always think back to how it was great that I stood for myself.
I loved your idea about, taking care of yourself. You mentioned self-care a lot. Taking care of yourself is an area, especially for men, that we really don't even look too much into. It is taken for granted. Again, going back to your conversation, standing the ground and say, you know what? I can perform better if I look better. Not just from the external perspective, but also from an internal perspective, because you would be much better wearing whatever you want if you are only better at a cellular level. And the faster the world realizes it and dials down to that is going to bring them true happiness, the better I think the world will be. And you have been such an inspiring role model. I mean, throughout this conversation, I am just amazed by somebody at your age going out there with an intention to conquer the world, yet grounding yourself every time you do that, and also finding time to go out there to the masses and provide and facilitate for education. A lot of people out there leave that element for much later on in their lives. I'm going to give back. Whereas here you are, well educated, a TV host, a fitness influencer, and a brand ambassador to so many. You really don't have to do the giving back yet. I loved another element that you said, normalizing fear. And we live in a world today where this is becoming such a big topic about mental well-being.
Yep.
I look at it as it's just a carpet. The dirt and the dust has different dimensions. And one of the biggest dirt or filth that lies under this carpet of mental well-being is fear. Mm-hmm. And beautifully said, normalize it. Experience it.
Yeah.
Wow. And then use it as an opportunity to grow. And if that is the tone that is set to our future generation or the younger audience, which I really want to connect to, but I am not able to. But this is where people like you, who are leaders, who I look at as leaders to the next gen, who's out there and struggling. I mean, needless to say, where I started my health journey, I struggled. But I looked up at some leaders and they gave me the hand. That hand came as knowledge, that hand came as motivation, that hand came as a talk. And you have the potential, and I see this. Keep doing what you're doing, mate. I think you have a really good talent to go out there and be one of those brand ambassadors for empowering the youth who are really struggling in this area, and especially with fear. And that being a blocker to realizing their fullest potential.
I really hope it positively changes the world for the better, because as teachers and everything we do can impact another person.
Wow, what a pleasure it's been talking to you, mate. And I am sure the viewers today had so much to learn from you. Now, I'm just going to step back a bit and then ease this down. And are you ready to burn some fat?
Yeah.
Sitting on that chair?
Yes.
Okay, this is what we call the rapid fire.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so questions, the answers, just one.
Okay. One word, right?
One word, that's it.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
Oh, response as quick as you can.
Okay.
So here we go. You ready?
Okay, yeah.
Animal Flow or hosting the Vogue Beauty Awards?
Oh, Animal Flow.
Hong Kong or Canada?
Canada.
Super. Best shoes in the world?
Best shoes in the world. I don't know. Kibo. I'm just wearing them right now.
We're worried about your sponsorship now.
No.
Shisha or a glass of red wine? Or
Red
both?
wine.
Oh, okay. Good. Early to bed or late?
Depends on what I'm working on next day, but probably late.
Cocktails or bubble tea?
Bubble tea.
Oh, love it. You
bubble
proved
tea.
to
That
be a
was like
super
bubble
kid.
tea right away.
Okay, thank you so much, Vincent. It was a pleasure hosting you on board.